Hello, and welcome in to another episode of the Outsider Podcast, the best political podcast west of I 35. I'm your host, as always, Drew Landry, and in today's episode, I have some serious issues that I'm going to take with the Texas House of Representatives Democratic Caucus. And I explain how it is like that certain person will keep on the hook and they respond like it's really going to happen this time. And I also get into the pardons made by the president, including roughly the 1,500 people who committed the acts of sedition on January 6th of 2021. And it's worth noting that even the Wall Street Journal's editorial board questions how doing so keeps him representing the party of law and order and how they can somehow continue to be the backing of the blue. And the last thing that we'll get into is how we'll kind of just laugh just for a moment as to how the Astros second baseman and jumbo shrimp Jose Altuve, as he tries to lure his teammate and current free agent Alex Bregman back to the Space City. But before I get into that, I just would like to encourage you to share The Outsider, whether it's the podcast or whether it's the publication, with as many people as you would like. And I'm humbled that you would even do so. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can also do so on Spotify. Just search for the Outsider Podcast. And if you want to get into some more info, you can actually listen to the podcast on YouTube. Again, you just search for the Outsider Podcast on YouTube. One other thing that I put there on YouTube is sometimes I'll do a video and I'll put the actual video of the recording on the YouTube channel. And you can also follow me on Blue Sky. I am at drellandry.bluesky.social. All right. And I try to be as thoughtful and witty on that social medium as I possibly can be. I just want to say one other little technical thing going on here is I'm recording this, and one of my cats will be jumping around, and so I'm trying to manage that as that goes on. So you may hear some things. And it's all in fun. She's very adorable and loves to have the attention, and so she's going to be jumping up here. So just know that. Just a little fun thing. All right, that said, let's get into the main event here, where in this last week, the Texas House of Representatives adopted its rules package for the session, meaning that this is how the House will operate for this entire session, for the 140-day time. Well, now it's less than that, but you get the picture. And one of the big rules was to prevent Democrats from chairing or leading on any major committees. Okay, and when we say major, we mean like standing. Okay, and standing committees is where all the bills get passed. Right, the major things, the things you hear about in the news and all those things, those come from standing committees. All right. So it bans Democrats from chairing any of those. Right? It's been a near 40-year tradition where you'd have everybody at least chairing one committee of some type. But in this session, that will no longer be the case. The other thing is that it prevented Republicans from vice chairing any major committees. Okay? So you're only going to have Republicans chair and only Democrats vice chair. And that was one of the big things that Republicans have wanted for a long time, is that no more Democrats will chair anything. Okay? So interesting as that is, there were still those who didn't like this package, and we'll talk about them in just a little bit, mainly on the Republican side. But here's a little bone that was given to the Democrats for possibly supporting this, was that they could maybe chair what's called a subcommittee. All right? So no major committee, but a subcommittee. Yay! So it's like someone left on the hook from a desired lover, and Democrats are happy to say, "Thank you, may I have another?" The total vote to actually pass this rules package was 116 in favor to 23 who oppose. The kicker of this was that 55 of the 116 were Democrats. And we also need to point out that it was mostly Democrats who helped elect Lubbock's own state rep, Dustin Burrows, to become the House Speaker. And you may recall during those speeches for his nomination, you had people say, he'll listen to us. You had another person say, don't DC my Texas House. This isn't DC. Something to that effect. And all that's true. But this is the reason that they're going to support Burrows for House Speaker. But this is going to come and bite them later. And especially whenever there's a school voucher fight that's going to take place. But here's another good point that I heard that I need to mention, and I'll talk about what else I've heard and else that I've read, was that even whenever Democrats were chairs, even whenever they were leading committees, we need to remember that that didn't stop any of the major pieces of legislation to come through, you know. The House Speaker found inventive ways to move those bills out of the purview of Democratic chairs. Okay, and that's the power of the House Speaker. All right, so if the ongoing narrative was that this would stop conservative bills from coming into the Texas House, and you have to ask yourself, when has that ever happened in the last 20 some years? Answer is it really hasn't. But what is more laughable about all this is that Democratic chair, caucus chair, Gene Wu, State Rep Wu, told WFAA's flagship political talk show, Inside Texas Politics, he told the host, Jason Whiteley, that he felt Democrats would actually chair a few committees. And here's part of that interview.
I'm here. Do you expect Democrats are going to chair any committees this legislature?
I think Democrats will.
You think so?
Yes. Because I think we have a speaker now who understands that sometimes the best person for a committee may not be a Republican, but might be a Democrat. And they're going to see, I think they're going to see who is the best for the job before they determine, well, you're disqualified by the letter behind your name.
Well, that didn't age well. Because once the vote to adopt Texas rules was taken and the rules package passed, the Democrats held a press conference, and there was Caucus Chair Wu saying basically, yeah, we won't chair anything, but hey, at least we'll be heard and be part of the process. And so just listen here.
What I think you saw here today is the House united and working on a set of rules that, while it has hurt Democrats and reduced our power, but at least gives us some ability to interact in the process and have our constituents' needs met. And I think in a time when Democrats lost seats instead of gaining them, this has been really a yeoman's effort to negotiate all these different changes and to at least make sure that Democrats have some role in this process. And I know that there's people out there who are very unhappy about it because many of their members, some of their members, have called for Democrats to just simply be expelled from the body because we're Democrats, right? And nothing is ever going to make them happy short of, having the rules say that Democrats will be publicly executed on the floor. And we're never going to make those people happy, and we don't intend to. The people who are going to be empowered are the people who want to make this state work. And I have a message, and if there are Democrats out there who are upset about what has happened today, they're upset that Democratic chairs are now banned, your best revenge will be to help make sure that we flip the House and that we make Republicans live under their own rules. And
so let's understand what he just said there. That is a complete about face. To go from, yeah, I think we will be able to, well, we won't. But that's okay, is so weak. All right? There's other words I'd like to put here, but that are synonymous with that, but I won't. I'm sure you can think of them. But I just want to say just a couple things here about all this, is that is such a naive take. That is so naive because Republicans wanted the Democrats only for those votes. And the Democrats gave it up. And you gave them that for nothing. You were played like a $2 banjo. And somehow that's a victory? I mean, if this is going to be the tuck tail and run strategy for the Democrats involved in this, then just go home. Just go home. Resign your seat, and maybe those districts that you are going to return to and not come back to will elect somebody who has a backbone. And here's why I'm saying this, because I've read and I've heard a lot of takes about this rules package and how speakers vote and all that. And how this particular rules package vote made some hardline Republicans look pretty foolish because, they were upset because it didn't go far enough and they didn't like the process. And so let's understand something here. Those dingleberries who are extremists, it's not difficult for them to look foolish, okay? You don't, if someone's fumbling and stumbling and about to fall to the ground, you don't push them down. You just get out of the way. Those people automatically become the dumbest person in the room. They automatically become the dumbest people in the room. They don't have to do anything. They just are. So outfoxing them is like dunking on an 8-foot goal. Well, I'm hoping that would be easy, but I always forget about little Briscoe Kane. He might need a trampoline for that, but anyway. But you get the point. This sort of victory is nothing to brag about. And then I hear and I read about, well, it keeps them at the table. And how the long-standing argument is Democrats want to be the adults in the room. Let me get to that table part in just a second here. But how can Democrats be the adults in the room when there's 60 petulant and bratty toddlers, 20 clueless babysitters, and one oldest adult who allows all this stuff to happen? They can't do that. There's no adulting. One, when you're the party out of power. And two, when no one's going to actually take you seriously on anything. And if they do, then there's going to be this gigantic fight about it all. So no, there's no adulting. Any major stuff that Democrats want might get a hearing in a committee, but that's it. It's not going to go anywhere. And then this whole seat at the table malarkey, because that's what it is. It's a bunch of malarkey. You had the opportunity to pick your seat at the table. You could have chosen your seat at the table. When time came for you to choose your actual seat, to pick your spot, you chose a seat at the kids' table. Oh, you'll be heard all right. You sure will. Like the child who whines about the food touching his plate, and you will be ignored. Oh, we hear you, but we're not going to do anything about it. And why am I saying this? Why am I talking about this? Because times have changed. It's the Republicans who wanted to Washingtonize the Texas House of Representatives. They wanted to Washingtonize the Texas Senate, and they have. The legislature has gone more and more to D.C. style in the last 4-5 sessions. And who's been in power during that time period? And they're getting what they want. So the party that wants to ice you out, Democrats, why are you letting them achieve this? Why are you helping them? Well, we get a seat at the table. We're going to be like the adults in the room. I just explained how all that is malarkey. That stuff doesn't matter anymore. And that's my issue with this, is that they had the ability from day one to support a candidate of their own for speaker, to join the 23 nutsos, to block the rules package, barring you from leading a committee, and continue to be the loyal opposition every step of the way. You missed your opportunity because you could have blamed all this on the Republicans. You could have said it's their thing, it's their legislature, it's their agenda. We're against it. You could have helped those in tough districts by campaigning on this. See, the Republicans are governing because they're the party in power. They know. You are behaving like it's 1995, like it's 2001. Heck, you could even say it's 2009. It isn't. Republicans are playing chess, and Democrats are still choosing a game that they think the Republicans will like. They are not the same. The party of tradition broke tradition. When there were maybe 15 Republicans in the Texas House some 40 years ago, Panhandle West Texan Speaker Billy Clayton allowed a Republican, Tom Craddock, to chair a major committee. Now that tradition ends as another West Texan takes the gavel. And Democrats have to call them out on it. Again, if Republicans want to make this like D.C., let them. Then you campaign how bad everything was. And you blame it on them. And right now you're just letting it all slip away. Because most of you in the 62 who are elected, you know that 90, 93, 94% of you are coming back. So you don't care. You honestly don't care. I mean, you know you'll be there in 2027. So you don't give a flying flip about any of it. You don't care about advancing the agenda. You don't care about wanting to increase your numbers in the legislature. You only care about your own. And you still think all the old rules and all the old traditions that were once there are still existing. And they're not. And whenever you finally realize that, your political lives are going to become better. Now, as you may know, President Trump pardoned some 1,500 people who committed acts of sedition on January 6, 2021. And most Republicans just kind of shrugged it off. But one particular instance, one particular publication did not just shrug it off. And that was a publication that a lot of Republicans and a lot of people in Texas will read, and that's called the Wall Street Journal. And on January 21st, the editorial board issues this piece here. I'm just going to read you some of it here. It says, Republicans are busy denouncing Biden's preemptive pardons for his family and political allies, and deservedly so. But then it's a shame you don't hear many, if any, ruining President Trump's proclamation to pardon unconditionally nearly all of the people who rioted on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. This includes those convicted of bludgeoning, chemical spraying, and electroshocking police to try to keep Trump in power. Now he's springing them from prison. This is a rotten message from a president about political violence done on his behalf, and it's a bait and switch. Asked about January 6 pardons in late November, Trump projected caution. I'm going to do case by case, and if they were nonviolent, I think they've been greatly punished. We're going to look at each individual case. It's my Trump impersonation. Taking cues from the boss the previous week, Vice President J.D. Vance drew a clear line. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. So much for that, says the Wall Street Journal. The president's clemency proclamation commutes prison sentences for time served for 14 named people, including prominent leaders of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, who are organized and ready for violence. Then Trump tries to wipe January 6 clean with a full, complete, and unconditional pardon to all other individuals. The conceit is that there are hundreds of polite Trump supporters who ended up in the wrong place that day and have since rotted in jail. Out of roughly 1,600 cases filed by the feds, more than a third included accusations of assaulting, resisting, and impeding law enforcement. The U.S. Attorney's Office said it declined hundreds of prosecutions against people whose only offense was entering restricted grounds near the Capitol. of the 1,100 sentences handed down by this year, more than a third didn't involve prison time. The rioters who did get jail were often charged with brutal violence, and the Wall Street Journal's editorial board gives you some names here. It says there's more like this, which everyone understood on January 6th and shortly afterward. Okay. This is a third world style anti-American anarchy. There's nothing patriotic about what's occurring. The person who posted that on X was Marco Rubio. And what happened that day, this is the Wall Street Journal editorial board here, what happened that day is a stain on Trump's legacy, and by setting free the cop beaters, the president adds another. And I think it's interesting that the Fraternal Order of Police, the FOP, had no statement about this. Their official statement was, we have no statement. Maybe because they endorse Trump and they love Trump. So I don't know. It just makes me think about the party that wants to back the blue, who loves the police and is the party of law and order. How can you reconcile this? There's no high ground on this anymore. And look, January 6th has been talked about ad nauseum. And I'm on the side that believes in absolute rights and wrongs. There are absolutes in this world. They do exist. And January 6th, 2021 was a negative. It was a wrong. It was an awful day in our country's history. And pardoning the cop beaters, those who committed violent acts, is almost as bad. And the last thing here that I wanted to really get into was a piece from the Houston Chronicle. It just cracks me up. Is that Houston Astros second baseman and the team's Mighty Mouse, Jose Altuve, recently told the Chronicle that he would play in the outfield if it was necessary for free agent and perpetually hurt Alex Bregman to return to the Astros. I think that's just hilarious. I mean, the 4'2", wait, what? He's 5'6"? All-Star said he would move to, wait for it, left field. He moved to left field. Of course, immediate comparisons were made to Hall of Fame Astros Craig Biggio, as he played center field throughout the twilight of his career. But let's be honest. Unless Altuve has some sort of ups like Spud Webb, there's a blast from the past. I bet you didn't count on a Spud Webb reference today. Altuve has no business being in left field. I mean, you know that. And he knows that. But he's trying to make one last appeal to his favorite teammate, his buddy, saying he'll do anything for Alex. But that's highly unlikely that Bregman's coming back to the Space City. I mean, Astros offered him a 6-year deal. He turned it down. Astros said, okay, well, that's over. So they go out and sign Isaac Paredes. And the idea was, well, if Altuve, who plays second, was to move to left field, then Paredes, who's going to play third base, also played second base 53 times last season. So, hey, there's a chance. Maybe third baseman Bregman would come back. But that's not a very strong chance. But anything can happen in this off season. All right, folks, that does it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Outsider Podcast. Again, if you know of anyone who may like this show, don't hesitate to share it with them. The more you share, the more free stuff you get. So if you share and you get 5 free subscribers or paid, you get a month free of paid content. Meaning you get a month of paid content at no expense to you. You get 10. I think you get 3 months of paid content free to you. and it goes on and on and on and on and on. So all the incentives there to try to expand the audience and to get more people to listen in and to read my takes. Thank you so much again for listening. I appreciate y'all. I am at Drew L. Landry on Blue Sky, and follow me there. Subscribe to the Outsider newsletter and to the Outsider podcast, and we'll see you again very, very soon.